It's very interesting to see the public pushback on Erika Kirk, because this is something that, like, I think a lot of people have struggled with, because they are actual human beings. They saw the headline of, like, Erika Kirk losing her husband, her to assassins, like, and immediately everyone was sympathetic for her and, like, wanted the best for her, and, like, wanted her to mourn in, like, peace. And Erika did not want that for herself, because immediately she came out and she started grifting. She took over TP USA, she started pushing nonsense, and eventually people began to see through her grift. This is honestly probably an establishment plan that was placed to, like, try and control Charlie Kirk, and then eventually he started going off the rails, started questioning Israel, started questioning, like, certain things the establishment was doing, the Jewish donors, and they had to have him killed because of it. Because initially they were controlling him, but in the last weeks of his life, he made it clear that he would no longer be controlled, and they had to put a stop to it. That's basically what happened. And Erika Kirk was 100% complicit in this matter. And conservatives really do need to understand that, like, no, she doesn't love him. She doesn't have a soul. She's a horrible human being. And that's very obvious just by looking at how she's conducting herself, okay? Absolutely, real talk. She was planted there to control him, and is now trying to, like, control his organization, because, like, well, she was his wife, though. And this kind of goes into what I've been saying for a long time regarding, like, every political movement ever. No women, okay? I don't want women voting. I don't want them, like, speaking up. I don't want them to, like, give their thoughts on things. Like, I don't care what they do outside of their family. And that should be, like, the mindset that, like, all of us have going into this, is that Erika should have been mourning Charlie. She should have been taking care of his kids. Like, she should not have tried to push herself as a political personality, because nobody likes her. Nobody cares about what TP USA has become over the past year. Nobody cares. And it's becoming more and more obvious just how deep the institutional rot actually is, where someone like this is just shoved in our face so constantly after something that should have been a tragedy, only for her to, like, completely lose the goodwill of pretty much everyone. Okay, and that's kind of my mentality on this, is that, like, Erika Kirk, even if she did genuinely love Charlie and genuinely wanted to, like, improve the movement, like, all she had to do was hand it over to another man, and everything would have been fine, but she had to, like, ruin everything herself, not talk about what actually happened, not actually mourn Charlie, and just completely just tank TPUSA. Now, I would argue that, like, TPUSA in and of itself was always a pressure valve on, like, real conservatism. Talking about the Jews, talking about how race is real, talking about how women shouldn't have rights. TPUSA has always been the problem. But the issue with that, and I think we're seeing this a lot more with, like, with MAGA and stuff like that, is that even these, like, pressure valves are, like, starting to burst now. These people who are meant to, like, create, like, principled conservatism, who are meant to, like, control you, like, they are very much struggling to control people's thoughts in regards to certain things, in particular immigration and, like, crime policies, but also, like, when it comes to their own inability to, like, get anything done and, like, really produce real results. Like, more and more people are, like, turning on, like, individuals who should be seen as, like, established conservative figures, simply for, like, touching a wall, or, like, importing Muslims into your state. Like, a lot of people are, like, getting a lot of pushback from the community. And it seems like we're very, very near the point where, like, the entire thing is going to collapse. And I do think this is like the major thing that's happening when it comes to like TPUSA specifically, is that this was supposed to be something that was like, this was supposed to be a hostile takeover. TPUSA was supposed to switch gears and put a stop to everything they were doing, everything like the followers wanted, and like putting a stop to like, people trending more rightward. That's what they were supposed to do. And yet, like, in the end, it just made people more extreme. It made people realize that Erika Kirk, like, people like that have no business in politics. They have no business being talked about. I don't want to see them on TV. I don't want to hear their takes on politics. Like, they are complete scum, essentially. Like, and it doesn't matter if your husband was shot, because you're not doing anything to prevent that from happening again to other conservative leaders. In fact, you've kind of established that you're part of the problem. So again, the fact of the matter is that the fact that people were willing to turn on Erika Kirk so quickly demonstrates just how sick people are of this kind of nonsense, right? Like, there will be serious consequences for Charlie Kirk being assassinated, but like, it will be towards like people like Erika, who allowed it to happen and allowed the people who organized it to get away with it, and not naming any actual names. Okay, this is the reality of the situation, is that we are slowly going to take power back from the boomers. We're going to take power back from the establishment, and we're going to like introduce like very severe consequences for what's happening. Consequences will never be the same. It's going to happen eventually, over a period of like 10, 20, 50 years. Things are going to get worse before they get better, but that's the thing about it, is that we're getting to the point where people are beginning to realize there is a problem. Okay? I don't want to see women in conservative circles. I don't want to see women in politics. I don't want to see them voting or having opinions on stuff like this. I don't want to see people like Erika, who have degrees, trying to tell other women that like they don't need them, because it just comes off as if like she's doing that thing where she's like trying to stop them from like becoming successful. It's like it's something that really does need to be spelled out, is that like Erika Kirk is like absolute scum, like all these conservatives are, and that we do have to like kind of acknowledge that, and kind of have to push them that like, if you don't start deporting like everybody, like if you don't like seriously start like putting white American men first, if you don't like start like doing more for us, like there are going to be very serious consequences for you. Like, and it is going to happen. Like, that's where we're at right now, is that we're slowly starting to see like the system unravel, but it's not going to happen right away. And like, the only real reason it's happening, it hasn't happened yet, is because so many people are so comfortable. That's like the only reason why. Like, as things get worse, you are going to see more and more people like push back against this nonsense, and it is going to end very, very badly for the establishment.